They thought it was just a tiny satellite dish, but that little circle of metal became the spark that exposed an HOA's biggest secret. When Ethan moved into Cedar Grove Estates, he didn't want trouble. He wanted quiet mornings, clean streets, and evenings watching old movies after work. So when he installed a small TV dish on the side of his home, barely visible from the road, he didn't expect anyone to care. But 3 days later, a bright orange notice appeared on his door like a threat. Unapproved exterior device. Fine, $250. Ethan reread it twice, then walked outside, staring at the dish like it had betrayed him. The HOA president, Marlene Huxley, stood across the street with a clipboard, smiling as if she'd won a game. She didn't wave. She just pointed at the dish and wrote something down. Ethan tried to handle it calmly. He emailed, asked for clarification, even offered to move it. The reply came fast: remove it within 48 hours or fines will increase. No discussion. No appeal. That night, Ethan sat in silence, realizing this wasn't about a dish. It was about control. And he had no idea the fight was only beginning. Ethan decided to play by the rules until he learned the rules were never meant for everyone. The next morning he walked to the HOA office with printed paperwork, including federal guidelines he found online. He wasn't trying to start a war. He just wanted fairness. The receptionist barely looked up as she slid a form toward him like a punishment. Submit this. Processing takes 30 days. 30 days? Ethan asked. They gave me 48 hours. The woman shrugged. That's the policy. Outside, Ethan spotted something that made his stomach tighten. Across the street, Marlene's house had a large decorative flagpole, bright lights, and a massive security camera mounted above her garage. None of it matched the HOA's strict minimal exterior devices rule. Later, Ethan walked the neighborhood. He counted more violations than he could believe: unapproved garden sheds, bright patio lights, even a giant inflatable holiday display still up in March. Yet nobody else had orange warnings taped to their doors. That night he received another email: fine increased to $500. Non-compliance. Ethan stared at the screen, feeling the heat rise in his chest. It wasn't the money. It was the humiliation. The message was clear: he wasn't a resident to them, he was a target, so he made a decision. If they wanted to play power games, he would stop begging for permission. He would start documenting everything. And he would build something they couldn't ignore. The HOA expected Ethan to fold. Instead, he showed up to the meeting with receipts and a calm smile. The monthly HOA meeting was held in a small clubhouse with fake plants and stiff chairs. Marlene sat at the front like a queen on a throne, her board members lined beside her. When Ethan entered, the room went quiet. He carried a folder thick enough to look like a legal case. Marlene didn't hide her annoyance. "You're here about the dish?" Ethan nodded politely. "Yes. And about selective enforcement." The board chuckled, but Ethan didn't react. He placed photos on the table: unapproved structures, oversized cameras, lighting violations, all dated and labeled. "These homes have exterior devices too. Yet only I was fined." Marlene's smile tightened. "Those are different." "How?" Ethan asked calmly. "The rules say no exterior devices without approval." "That's what you wrote." Marlene leaned forward. "Your dish lowers property values." Ethan slid another paper across. "Federal ordered regulations protect small satellite dishes. HOA cannot ban them or fine residents for them." For the first time, the board looked uncertain. Marlene's face turned stiff, like someone losing control of a room she owned, but then she did something Ethan didn't expect. She banged her gavel and said, "Meeting adjourned." Just like that, as everyone stood up, Marlene whispered with a sharp smile, "You'll regret embarrassing me." Ethan walked out into the night air, feeling the storm coming. He wasn't scared anymore. He was ready. The next fine wasn't about the dish. It was about breaking Ethan's spirit. 2 days after the meeting, Ethan received a certified letter. His hands trembled as he opened it. New violation: unauthorized signal equipment. Fine, $1,200. The letter accused him of broadcasting and interfering with neighborhood systems. It sounded official enough to frighten someone who didn't know better. Ethan almost laughed until he saw the second page. Lien warning. That word hit like cold water. A lien meant they could threaten his home. Ethan sat down, breathing slowly, staring at the paper like it was poison. He called the HOA office. No answer. He emailed. Auto reply. He drove to Marlene's house and stood at her gate. Watching her curtains shift as if she was hiding behind them, that evening, Ethan's neighbor, Mr. Dalton, knocked on his door. She's doing this to you because you're new, Dalton whispered. She did it to my cousin too. He moved out. Ethan looked at the dish outside his window, still small, still harmless. And he realized something: the HOA wasn't protecting property values. It was protecting power, so Ethan stopped thinking small. If they wanted to accuse him of signal equipment, he would give them something real, something legal, something public, something impossible to ignore. He opened his laptop and searched one phrase: ham radio tower zoning rights. And that's when the plan began. Marlene wanted Ethan to disappear. Instead, she watched him build something that made the entire neighborhood stare. Ethan filed permits with the county. He read regulations late into the night. He called professionals, asked questions, followed every rule so perfectly it became unstoppable. When approval came through, he didn't celebrate, he simply started building. A week later, trucks arrived. Metal beams. Concrete. Workers measuring and bolting pieces together. Neighbors gathered like it was a parade. And rising slowly beside Ethan's home was a tall, sleek communications tower, fully legal, fully permitted, and twice as noticeable as any tiny dish. Marlene stormed over in a designer blazer. Furious. You can't do that. Ethan calmly handed her a folder. County permits. Engineering approval. Federal protections. She flipped pages with shaking hands. This is ridiculous. You're ruining the neighborhood. Ethan smiled politely. Funny. You said my dish ruined property values. I figured I'd upgrade. For the first time, the neighbors laughed, quietly, but enough. Marlene's face turned bright with rage. She pointed at the tower like it was a crime scene. I will have that removed. Ethan leaned closer, voice calm. You can try. But every fine you sent me? Every threat? I saved it all. Marlene froze, because she suddenly realized Ethan wasn't just building a tower. He was building a case, and the next step would destroy her reputation. The HOA called an emergency meeting. They expected Ethan to apologize. Instead, he walked in with a surprise they couldn't escape: the clubhouse was packed. Even residents who never attended showed up, whispering about the tower. Marlene stood at the front, acting calm, but her eyes were sharp and desperate. She opened the meeting with a speech about community standards and protecting value. Then she pointed at Ethan. This resident has acted in bad faith. The board will vote to demand removal. Ethan stood slowly. Before you vote, I'd like to share something. Marlene snapped. No. Ethan didn't flinch. He plugged a small projector into the clubhouse screen. Up came an email chain: Marlene instructing the board to make an example of Ethan. Another message: increase fines until he breaks. Then a third: if he refuses, push lien threat. The room went silent. Ethan then showed photos of Marlene's own violations, approved instantly with no delays. This HOA isn't enforcing rules, Ethan said calmly. It's enforcing obedience. A board member shifted uncomfortably. Another looked down, then Ethan delivered the twist. I also filed a complaint with the county and requested an audit of HOA finances. Marlene's smile cracked. You did what? Ethan nodded. And I sent all documentation to a local consumer advocate reporter. They're already interested. Marlene's hands trembled. Because she knew what was coming next. Not fines. Not threats, exposure. Marlene thought she could control the neighborhood forever until the truth hit daylight. Within 2 weeks, Cedar Grove Estates was the talk of the county. The reporter published a story about HOA intimidation tactics, selective enforcement, and mysterious fees. Residents began requesting records. Suddenly, people who had stayed silent for years found their voices. Then came the audit results: missing funds, unexplained consulting payments, and board decisions made without proper votes. Marlene tried to blame others, but the paper trail pointed straight to her. At the next HOA meeting, Marlene arrived looking smaller, quieter. The room was full again, but this time the mood was different. No fear. Only judgment. A resident stood up. "We vote to remove Marlene from the board." Another added, "and refund unfair fines." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His tower stood outside like a symbol of something bigger than metal, proof that power fails when people stop being scared. The vote was unanimous. Marlene lost her position, her influence, and the control she built on intimidation. As she walked out, she didn't scream. She didn't argue. She just avoided everyone's eyes. Ethan went home, looked at his old tiny dish, and smiled. The dish was never the real fight. It was the excuse, and the tower? That was the message, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.